Carole is a co-founder of the Lesbian Action Group, which last year applied to the Australian Human Rights Commission for an exemption to run an event for lesbians only on International Lesbian Day. She is also co-founder of the Lesbian Club, a membership-based incorporated association recently established to run and promote social events for lesbians in Australia. Carole has been a lesbian feminist activist for the past 45 years, organising festivals, conferences, camps, dances, groups, and much more for lesbians over that time. Several years ago, she decided it was time to retire, read books, potter in the garden, take afternoon naps. However, the call to action once again has been too strong and brought her out of retirement to fight this ideological madness that has taken over the world and now threatens the rights of lesbians, women in general, and children. And Carole, over to you.
Thank you, Janet. Hello, everybody. I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people, who are the custodians of the land on which I live. I'm going to talk today about the Lesbian Action Group actions over the last, well, it's not even a year. Last August, a group of us got together, a group of us lesbians got together and decided that we were absolutely fed up with being underground and being silenced. And so we decided that we were going to do some action, not just sit around and talk about the woes of the trans taking over our spaces, but actually try some action. We thought that it was about time. So that a small group of us decided our first action would be to put in for an exemption to the Australian Human Rights Commission. We called ourselves the Lesbian Action Group. There had been another Lesbian Action Group back in the 80s. None of the original group were part of ours, but it feels good to be carrying on a tradition and a name. So we decided that we would put in for an exemption because in 2003, 2 of our members had actually applied for an exemption under the Sex Discrimination Act to run lesbian events for, I hate saying it, lesbians born female, as if there's any other kind of lesbian. And back in 2003, we did get the exemption granted in the Victorian Equal Opportunity Tribunal, but then that was challenged and it was taken away from us. So after that, we decided to just go underground, not advertise our events. Unfortunately, a couple of years later, another event that we had was challenged, and so we went even deeper underground. So for 20 odd years, we have been having lesbian events all over Australia, but we haven't been able to advertise them because the minute we do, the trans will challenge them and take us to a tribunal, which costs money, lots of money. It costs time, and it means that our events are in jeopardy. So then comes the Lesbian Action Group, and 2 of us had, as I said, put in for that original exemption, and we decided we'd do it again. And given the current climate, we knew that it was very improbable that we would get an exemption from the Australian Human Rights Commission. So our aims were to just to make people aware, to raise awareness of what was happening, And I must say that's been very successful as part of our strategy. So we put in the application and managed to get nearly 400 letters of support from all over the world, from lesbians, straight women, and even a smattering of men supporting our application. The process was that it went to the Human Rights Commission first, and they then made a preliminary judgment, which was published on the website. And then we were given an opportunity to respond to that preliminary judgment, which, of course, as we'd expected, was to deny us the right to an exemption to be able to run this event. We wanted to run it on International Lesbian Day at the Victorian Pride Centre, which we also knew would refuse us, which again they did. So there's good and bad in all that. I mean, it's outrageous that it actually happened, that we had to apply for an exemption, and that they denied us the exemption, and that the Pride Centre denied us a booking. But if we looked on the positive side, it played into our aim to raise awareness. So the initial preliminary response was, no, you can't have it, because that would be discrimination. Another slew of letters were then written, and I have to thank many of you, probably the audience, and many others who aren't here tonight, for writing those letters. It was just amazing to receive them all and to read all the support. It was just fantastic. As I said, nearly 400 letters in support, whilst the other side only got 100. So 4 to 1. So then came the final decision, which again didn't really surprise us, but still it hurts. It's a kick in the guts. It says you don't matter. And the reason that they gave was that it's not appropriate or reasonable to make distinctions between women based on their biological sex at birth or transgender experience, and to exclude transgender lesbians, their words, from a community event. So they did, in fact, in that final verdict, say that we could actually exclude heterosexual men and gay men, and we could exclude heterosexual women. They didn't see that as discrimination. That was would come under special measures, apparently. But they did say that transgender lesbians, i.e. men who say they're women and then say they're lesbians, would be traumatised by it. Here's what they said. Commission notes that the grant of this exemption may lead to the further exclusion of and discrimination against transgender women who are lesbians. Transgender women are a group who have and continue to experience discrimination, harassment, and social exclusion. Recent studies within Australia reveal that transgender and gender diverse people report high levels of harassment and social exclusion due to their gender identity or sexuality. Experience of harassment and social exclusion often lead to poorer health outcomes, with 67.4% of transgender women reporting being diagnosed or treated for a mental health condition. We know why. In the previous 12 months, and 86% of trans women reporting ever having thoughts about suicide. So the needs of so-called trans men, trans women, men who call themselves women, trumps anyone else, including lesbians. And the reason being that if we hold, well, you can extrapolate, if we hold an event for lesbians only, then those men who want to be lesbians will be suicidal, and that's our responsibility. From the words of the Australian Human Rights Commission. Anyway, in the final denial, they then said that we could appeal to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. And being a small group, there were only 8 of us, it took us a while to decide whether we would do that or not. First off, we decided we wouldn't. It was too risky. We were just a bunch of volunteers and nobody wanted to risk being, the subject of litigation. So we decided not to. But then at the 11th hour, we decided we would. And luckily, we have Anna on our side, and we have a pro bono barrister who has offered his services, which is fantastic. And we have a wonderful researcher in Megan. So we have a great legal team. So we've decided to go for the appeal, and that will happen in September. The hearing is early September for that. And some of the reasons that our barrister has put down for going for the appeal is he challenges that idea that we were responsible for transgender men's health conditions. It also challenges the fact that they said that all the evidence we gave, they said, was anecdotal, not empirical evidence. Now, I've just today read through a lot of the applications, and there was heaps of evidence, but they chose to ignore that. So he's challenging that. We shall see whether it has any effect, whether we get anywhere with it. We will be disappointed again, but not surprised at all if we don't win this. Again, the main aim is getting it out there, getting the publicity, getting people saying, what? They're saying that men can be lesbians? For some reason, it strikes people as more ridiculous than saying men can be women. You say men can be lesbians, that seems to pique a few more people, which is a good thing. One of the other things that came out of the whole exemption application, the Human Rights Commission seemed to be pointing us in the direction of a special, permanent exemption if we were a club. If we were a membership-based club, then we could have a permanent exemption, so they say. So a group of us then decided, well, we'll do that. We'll continue with the lag appeal, but we will also set up a club. And we've done that. It's called the Lesbian Club, and we had our launch a couple of Sundays ago. We already have 115 members, and we are able now to run events for members only. And we have a strict vetting process so that as far as we can make it, it's safe, that only those who share our beliefs that humans cannot change sex and men cannot be lesbians are members. So that's our social arm, and our political arm still is the Lesbian Action Group. We actually have incorporated the Lesbian Action Group to mitigate against that fear of litigation, and we've restructured it. So we, as I said, we're the political arm, and we have divided ourselves up into teams and got a few projects going. So there's the appeal. There's Lesbian Visibility Team, who are going to continue to pursue the Victorian Pride Centre and inveigle ourselves into this centre, which is a multi-million-dollar centre, taxpayer-funded centre, which we lesbians barely get a look into. It's the Pride Centre. So there's that team. We've got a team for young lesbians. We're doing some outreach and have quite a number of young lesbians that we've managed to contact and put in touch with each other, which is very exciting because they are just so in need. A couple of them are detransitioners, desisters, so that's really important. We've got a direct action team for protests. We did one outside the Pride Centre last year on International Lesbian Day with our banners, and then went off to lunch afterwards. It was wonderful. And of course, we've got the admin team and a website team. We have a website for the Lesbian Action Group. So that's lesbianactiongroup.org.au, and the Lesbian Club is thelesbianclub.org.au. So you can, they're fledgling websites at the moment, so excuse their ongoing development, but you can get a sense of what we're up to. I mean, as I said, we started back in August, so we're not even a year old yet, and I think we've done very well with our activism. I'm pleased with it. So yeah, check us out, and if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them in the Q&A. So thank you.
Thank you, Carole Ann. It's so wonderful to hear that this is happening, and I especially love the outreach. When you talk to so many desisting or detransitioning women, so many of them are lesbians.
Yes.
And they don't have role models.
Yes.
So
exactly.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And I know there's a bunch of women who've come tonight just to listen to you. So there you go. Yeah, I know. Women are very keen to support your project. So thank you so much.